What's going on, guys? This is Ryan with RK Outpost, and today I want to talk about an article that Itchy Bacca with Disney Star Wars is Dumb actually wrote, and he has a great website. Obviously, you know, a lot of people use it, a lot of people reference it, but he wrote something that is pretty important to me, actually tagged me in it on Twitter. I'll actually go ahead and pull up that initial tweet right here, and Itchy Bacca, Disney Star Wars is Dumb, gave me a tag because he knows I'm a huge Expanded Universe fan, just like him. And we'll go ahead and go to his article. Again, if you're not looking at Disney Star Wars is Dumb, I'd highly recommend it. And you can see by the title, Applying Anti-EU Criticism to Disney's Sequel Trilogy. And as I've talked about on this channel a lot, and as a lot of other people who are big fans of the Expanded Universe have talked about, you know, a lot of things that happen, especially the push to get them to get Disney to push aside the Expanded Universe in favor of a new Disney canon that had free range to do whatever they wanted. They didn't have to be limited by any of the stories told in the Expanded Universe. You know, there's a lot of articles that went out there saying, oh, well, this was stupid. Well, this was stupid. Well, this was so dumb. And so many of those things a couple years later are coming to fruition. Well, Itchy Bacca revisits an article from Cracked.com, 5 awful storylines we don't want to see in the Star Wars sequels. And this was written, you know, before Disney had bought it. This was just when people were talking. And, you know, they kind of compared it to the prequels. And, well, you thought the prequels were bad. Well, this would have been even worse kind of thing. So disrespecting the prequels and the Expanded Universe. So let's see what Itchy Bacca has to say here. Here's a member berry for you. Remember when the critics of the Expanded Universe would parrot a standard list of gripes that excused Disney firebombing the EU so often that a standard set of responses had to be formulated? How well do those criticisms hold up now? Well, let's take a trip down Memberberry Lane and take a look at it. All right, so number 5, number 5 worst thing about the EU, evidently. Undoing the ending of Return of the Jedi. In the unofficial sequel stories, keep in mind it didn't Heir to the Empire, it does say the official continuation, the authorized continuation of George Lucas's story after Return of the Jedi. Just saying. Maybe you didn't do your research there, Cracked. That is, the Empire keeps rolling right along, imposing space tyranny and all that stand in their way. And then it says, with the Emperor gone, there were hundreds of Moffs, generals, and politicians who vied for control of the galaxy. Without a universally accepted leader, the Empire spiraled into civil war. The rebellion, still, well, a rebellion, which means it has to gain victory over the remaining Imperials to win, who are in turn fighting amongst themselves. That's what should happen. That is the logical step. That makes sense. Right? Just because the Emperor is dead, just because you lost the Executor and Darth Vader, there are still tons of powerful people in the Empire. There are still tons of war equipment in the Empire. All of the planets are still controlled by the Empire. So it's not just going to be overnight, all of a sudden the rebellion can take over. It's a process, and that's exactly what it was, and it was done so well in the Expanded Universe. So incredibly well. And, so they didn't like the fact that the Empire still reigned for a long time. But guess what? In the sequel trilogy, we have Empire 2.0, the First Order. Essentially no difference. Essentially no difference. Their next one, number 4, Cloning the Emperor. The sequel stories, Emperor Palpatine is brought back from the dead in a clone body. Once more, you can see why they did it. You need a villain. And if George Lucas had written the sequel stories, it's hard to believe he wouldn't have done the same after he contorted every prequel storyline to shoehorn as many OT characters as he could. Again, throwing shade at the prequels, throwing shade at George Lucas. But guess what? We have the Emperor. We know the Emperor is returning. We don't know if he will or will not be a clone. That's yet to be determined. I guess we'll find out soon for Rise of Skywalker. For those of you that are going to see it, I will be sailing the high seas to get my laughs in. But again, just another thing that went and came to fruition that they didn't want in the sequels. They thought it was stupid in the EU, but now it's happening. So, haha, I suppose. Let's see. 3, adding a bunch of new Jedi. You know, because who would have thought that Luke Skywalker at the end of Return of the Jedi, would have gone on to create a Jedi Order? God, these people, the people that wrote this article are idiots. Pretty much the entire point of the original trilogy was for Luke Skywalker, son of Darth Vader, the last hope for the Jedi Order in the galaxy. You know, the other Jedi having been ruthlessly hunted down and destroyed by the Empire and all. Yeah, he was supposed to go on and recreate it. And that's exactly what happened in the expanded universe, and then even in the sequel trilogy. Although we don't get to see much of it, we know that Luke started a Jedi Academy, and that Kylo went on to kill everyone there, all the students. And probably the Knights of Ren were some of those. I guess we don't really know. Maybe we'll find out more about the Knights of Ren, but honestly, who cares? Let's see what number 2 was. Oh, great. Great. The second worst thing about the expanded universe. Super weapons that make the Death Star look like a pile of shit. You know how in a sequel, you have to keep making everything bigger and better? Well, of course, in the extended universe, you mean expanded universe stories, dozens of other more powerful super weapons are introduced. Some so over the top in retrospect. Taking out the Death Star should have been right below. Remember to take mittens to the vet. And some of them get ridiculous. Evidently, the Empire set aside a little too much funding for the Board of Unnecessary Destruction. And then, of course, in the actual sequel trilogy from Disney, we have Death Star Destroyers. We have Star Destroyers equipped with Death Star technology. We have entire planet-sized Death Stars. You thought the expanded universe super weapons were over the top? Well, hold my beer, says Disney Star Wars. Again, something that you didn't want. That happened. But let's see what your number 1 thing was. Your number 1 thing, your number 1 problem with the EU that you wouldn't want in this sequel trilogy. Making a new Sith Empire. Our clever readers may have noticed a small curiosity. It's word for word the exact effing plot of the entire Star Wars saga. Not just a recycled plot device, but the whole plot. Man, we hate to say it, but we think we owe George Lucas an apology. You do! Considering the alternatives, making prequels look like a pretty freaking good idea. Yeah, the prequels, if you don't like the prequels, then I guess I don't know what to say. You already do owe George Lucas an apology if you don't like the prequels. But to get to this, making a new Sith Empire, oh, that's crazy. That's exactly what they're doing in the sequel trilogy. And time after time after time, you know, we see these stories plucked from the expanded universe that was thrown away. They bastardize parts of it. They make it not what it was, and they put it out there, pretending like they don't know what they're talking about, pretending like it's their own creation, that they came up with this, when everyone knows good and well, if you've read any of this stuff behind me, any of this expanded universe, you can recognize that for what it is, and it is just taking those ideas, pretending like they were your own, and that you didn't sweep them out the door. Now, the time, unfortunately, is gone for that. 2014, they swept it aside. It's done. But leave it. If you're going to throw it away, Disney, leave it. Why don't you come up with something on your own? Why do you have to constantly take from the expanded universe? But it's funny to see these people turn into hypocrites and start praising all the ideas that are coming down in this sequel trilogy when it was all the things, just different ways of doing these things that they didn't like before. It's always great to see it. Itchy Bacca did a great job exposing this. Like I said, follow Disney Star Wars is dumb. Follow Itchy Bacca on Twitter. It's awesome. He comes out with some great stuff. Exposes a lot of people. It's really good. But let me know what you guys thought. Did you find a lot of these things funny as I did when you take a look at all these things that people were complaining about the EU, and then they go ahead and just have a different version of it in this sequel trilogy? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching, everyone, and a huge shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram? Check out the description below. You'll find links to my P.O. box and my Patreon as well. And I'll talk to you guys later.